How the devil? I wanted to start off by first saying I've noticed a lot of new faces on my subscription list. Just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate the support. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is a series I do called What I'm Seeing. As you probably guessed from the title, it's an irregular series that I use to highlight and communicate my opinions on things within fractured space. I find it much easier to communicate my point coherently in spoken word rather than written, as it removes the chances for misinterpretation. Mostly. Now, this is the second time I've recorded this. I mention this fact because I want to emphasise how difficult it is to succinctly cover all of the topics encompassing the following. I'm surrounded an ocean of paper, covered in notes I've been scribbling out for the past few days. This video might come across a little more emphasised possibly than usual, as it isn't fully scripted. The topics involved require a lot of overlapping, so I strongly recommend you go and get yourself a brew and make yourself comfortable. I'll be addressing disconnections, matchmaking and the surrender button, as well as some ideas to rectify these problems going forward. As always, these are my opinions. People are more than welcome to disagree, and if anyone would like to discuss it further, I'd be more than happy to. Hell, we could even set up a vlog debate if anybody fancies it. But before anything, I always like to start these off with a new ship or ability concept that I've been kicking around. Today's idea: phased missiles, torpedoes, rockets and ships. I think it'd be kind of cool if the game had a phased projectile, obviously on quite an extended cooldown, that could pass through solid objects, and even ships that could do it as well. Something similar to any of the cloaks that are in the game. However, rather than it draining energy, you fire it off and it runs for a set amount of time before you pass back into phase. You wouldn't be able to be detected whilst out of phase, and you could move through solid objects. Obviously, if you rematerialise within a solid object, you probably should explode in order to make it fair, so that way if you misjudge it, it's your own fault really. Unless of course you rematerialise within a ship, because that would be a little bit unfair on the other ship in my opinion. Just a little something to kick around. So the surrender option is used to cease, desist and generally give up. Now I have a personal problem with this option. Not so much because I hate giving up, because let's face it, I hate giving up, but because I feel it's used incorrectly. To be clear, I'd be more than happy with its removal from the game. Chin up and fight it out until the end. It just denies your opponent the taste of their full victory, and it becomes quickly hollow, while allowing you to move on to the next game. Now, as I said before, I've spent some time over the past days thinking about this and a better way to present my views on this particular topic. Quite a bit of time actually. Basically, from the way I'm seeing it, people see a DC and they surrender. People lose Gamma 1, they surrender. 4 people accidentally jump to B at the start of the match, they surrender. This is dumb. The only time I condone the use of the surrender button is when, without a doubt, the match is over. And as a rule of thumb, in most instances, you can only tell this a couple of minutes before the match is actually finished. At which point, it's kind of pointless surrendering anyway. Don't get me wrong, there are instances in games where you can clearly see that your enemies have got a 3-level lead and you haven't capped a mine in over 10 minutes. Times like that, I can condone the use of the surrender button. I'm personally still going to say no, because, as I said before, I can't surrender, it's not in me. But I can see why someone might want to get out of that match. I like an uphill fight. I find it much more gratifying and rewarding when I achieve something in a game like that. However, so much can change in a match. A lucky wipe before gas, an enemy DCing causing a 4v4. The problem I'm seeing is, or at least how it appears to me, people are saying, oh, it's too hard, I only want to play if it's easy. Now, I was in a game a couple nights ago, 4v5 off the start line. We had lane control, mineral advantage, and we were completely dictating the flow of the game. We lost one fight and the team called for a surrender. At this point, my game froze and I had to relog. I presumed I'd be coming back to a defeat screen. To my dismay, the match was actually still running despite the majority of the team voting to end it. I'm not entirely sure why it didn't end, but I took the opportunity to point out to the rest of the team how we could win still. Now, our 5th player never returned, but that didn't stop us wiping them out off the back of their Gamma 3 push, rushing Gamma 4 and taking home the victory. That wouldn't have happened if 3 of those people had their way. This leads me on to my next point. The surrender button doesn't work the way I perceive that it's intended to. To draw a comparison to the surrender system, there was a reason League of Legends wouldn't allow you to surrender for the first 20 minutes. It wasn't because it was halfway through the estimated match length. It was because this is the length of time, plus a little breathing space, that you'd need in order to establish if one player or an entire enemy team is fed to an ungodly level that there's no possible way of coming back from it. Again, there are exceptions to this rule. I've been in plenty of matches where we could have easily surrendered at 12 minutes. However, in most cases, it's a fair window of time. If someone was fed to this level, or an entire enemy team, it didn't make much difference as the game would soon be over regardless. And in cases like this, the surrender button merely acts as an anti-farming tool. In a game where the board state can completely change in the 25th minute, it doesn't make much sense to have a surrender option available so early on. And this marginally crosses over into the disconnections as well. League of Legends suffers a similar disconnection problem as to what we are at the moment. I personally prefer the Dota approach when dealing with disconnections. In Dota, when a player disconnects, they're given a certain amount of time to return to the match. Once this window has passed, players on their team are allowed to leave the match without any impunity. This then gives them the option to either A, continue on because they feel like they're in a good position and could potentially win, or B, disconnect from the match without any negative ramifications. In all fairness, it works slightly differently in Dota. When a player disconnects from a match, the team losing the player then gains a benefit of additional gold and experience in an attempt to try and balance out the match. I've seen some games end shockingly fast simply because 2 to 3 players have disconnected and the remaining players have accrued so much gold so quickly that they can buy high tier equipment and the enemy team can't possibly keep up with it. It's got a bit of to and fro and a yin and yang going on in there really. If the decision was made to include this in Fractured Space, a couple of things would have to be done differently. Disconnecting players would only have a set amount of time to reconnect before they were locked out of the match. This would be to prevent players from disconnecting long enough for the game to pass into the safe state of disconnection and then return to abuse the system. Not suggesting anyone would, however it's a precaution that needs to be taken. Secondly, the disconnecting player's MMR would need to be deducted from the pool in order to give a truer reflection of the results, and appropriate MMR reward deduction for each team afterwards. Now I also appreciate there is a direct correlation between having fun and winning, and vice versa. However, it's a game where there are 2 teams and only 1 winner. If you're on the losing side and you're lucky, you might have fun. I think it's down to changing your perspective more than anything. I might be in a game where our team is getting hammered. I set myself the mission of killing the enemy protector. It won't make much of a difference to the game. We're 3 levels down, they're barreling down on us with Gamma 4. It's over. The fat lady's past warming up and she's going hammer and tongs at it by now. But it doesn't matter, because I got the protector. I made it all the way through the enemy lines, dodged, weaved, targeted and dropped that sucker. Or I didn't, I died in the progress, but hell, it was on my terms. Perspective and presentation contribute so much to a positive attitude. Continuing on with disconnections. Joining in progress matches isn't going to happen. It's daft to think it is. It's crazy still to think that that'd fix any of the current problems. It would just prolong the torment until a permanent fix is installed. And honestly, the best fix would be more players. So tell your friends about Fractured Space, presuming you haven't already done so. Something else quite interesting which Dota uses, which might be quite useful, is a special bracket. Now this is designed for players with horrendously awful performance or players that consistently disconnect from matches. What this does is it groups them into a special group. This group now, they are all forced to play with each other, and they're the people at the bottom of the rung when it comes to things like disconnection and rage quitting. The idea is that they have to prove that they can play like normal players in order to progress out of this bracket and then return to normal society and be reintegrated. The only way this would work though is if you don't tell people the requirements to enter this bracket and you don't tell people the requirements to leave this bracket. Otherwise people are just going to metagame so that they don't end up falling into that bracket. It has really good results. I've known people before now to drop into this bracket within Dota and it's hell on earth for them. They absolutely hate it because everybody disconnects, nobody knows what they're doing and nobody wants to work as a team. Once you get out of that zone, it accentuates for you all of the main mechanics within the game, and therefore you commit yourself a lot harder in order to not end up back in that bracket. It's kind of effectively like giving bad players a timeout, whilst giving the better players, or at least the players who stick to the way the game's meant to be played, a little bit of a respite. Maybe this is something that could be considered going forward, especially for those serial disconnectors. Those people that fire up the surrender option, and then when it doesn't go according to plan, they rage quit out of the game or sit AFK. Now don't get me wrong, I appreciate I don't like the whole surrender thing. We've already covered that. But I have to accept it when a surrender goes through. There's nothing I can do about that, apart from rant about it on here. But by the same token, when a surrender option fails and the game continues, those players should also respect that. They should carry on playing because the majority of the team isn't ready to give up. Just because that team isn't ready to give up when that 1 or 2 people are, doesn't mean then they should go AFK or rage quit out of the game. It's not fair. Now, I appreciate this whole classification of disconnecting players probably isn't viable at the moment due to the size of the pool of players and due to the other things that are currently under development. But maybe it's something that could be addressed in future. Maybe it could very well be the answer that we're looking for when it comes to dealing with disconnections, rather than the fatal ban hammer. Something else I want to cover while I got the opportunity and your undivided attention: VoIP. There's no game in history that hasn't been improved by in-game communications, whether it's a third-party independent communication system or something built into the game. Now, I know a lot of people's automatic response is, well, I don't want to use it. Well, don't, frankly. Just mute it or don't install it. It's an optional extra. You don't have to use it. There isn't a man stood there with a gun at the back of your head saying you have to talk to these people across VoIP. It's easy enough to rectify. But then it gives players who want to use that system the option to communicate with their teammates in order to improve their tactics, in order to excel at a team-based game, which, let's face it, that's what Fractured Space is. It's a team-based game. You can't rage at someone just because they haven't got the same thought process as you and they haven't come to the same conclusion when reading the map. It isn't fair. With something as simple as a VoIP, really easy to fix. And for all of those people that are out there concerned about people raging over the VoIP and giving grief and all of that sort of stuff, it's really easy to fix. All you'd have to do is use a VoIP system that works along the same lines as Shadowplay. It ghost records all of the communications from the match you're in. If someone then acts inappropriately, offensively, or derogatory in any way, shape, or form, you then record the audio from that match, which has been ghost recorded for however long that match has been running. You can then submit that audio to be evaluated in order to establish if the person is acting inappropriately, and then subsequently they can be warned or banned depending on the nature of their behaviour. I'm fully aware the game is still under development, and I appreciate these are all things that are either being considered or on the agenda for the near future. I'm just throwing out some ideas as food for thought, and maybe, just maybe, my ramblings might spark an idea not yet considered. In summary, I feel that in the majority of instances, the only time it's necessary to surrender is quite literally just before the match finishes, at which time it's pointless surrendering because the match is just about to finish anyway. There are always exceptions, but these are games where your opponents are 2-3 levels up, and your team haven't been able to cap any mines for the last 10 minutes. I do, however, get the impression, I need to stress, my issue isn't with these situations, which appear to be what a number of individuals have interpreted it as. My issue lays with those teams who fail to secure Gamma 1, or drop a level behind, or lose one team fight and hit the surrender button. Now, on a completely unrelated topic, I'm quite looking forward to a draft system that allow me to change ship loadouts once I know what the enemy team has selected. I think it'll allow me to use a lot more of the, should we say, slightly less popular loadouts, as well as removing that sense of dread just before the enemy team is revealed. Now, I don't like leaving things on a downer, so the footage here is from a recent game where we capped the enemy base literally to 100%, but the game didn't finish. So I hope you enjoy. And until next time, stay well as always. I need some energy, come here. Oh, that's my time to live.
And that's a no.
Come on, just stay in the bubble. Stay in the bubble. Just in the bubble. Just in the bubble.
Get in the bubble.
Shit. Does it win? Come on. Yeah.
Nice.
That says 100%. How have we not won? That says 100%. Why have we not won? I don't understand.
I captured that.
I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Dude, we have a what's his face still here? Aw, dang.
My brain hurts right now.
What is it called when like
Broken?
something not from this earth like happens? You know what I'm talking about? Like there's a certain word for it, I forgot. Whatever. Yeah, it's broken. Watch them get 100% and we lose.
We own everything on the map. It's got to be. It's chat agrees. It's got to be not quite ticked over to 100%, but I've never, ever, ever, ever seen that before in any games ever.
There we go.
What the fuck?